Out to the debate today. This is our presidential debate. We had our vice presidential debate yesterday, and we have three candidates going up for president today. These three candidates will be debating a variety of issues over the next hour and a half or so. For those that don't know me, my name is Jeremy Johnson. I am the current director of executive platform for Student Congress. Full disclosure, I've worked with two of these candidates that are currently in Student Congress on a variety of topics, a variety of projects, but I promise to remain neutral and merely act as a guide to get us through this debate today. The order in which candidates appear on stage was determined to be a poll that we did on our social media pages. Murryum Farooqi is in the middle because the Farooqi-Ferguson slate received the most votes with 76. Placed on her right is Josef Gojcaj. The Gojcaj-Mitchell campaign received the second most votes with 34, and then Joshua Kobus, he received 12 votes in the polling that we did. Quick explanation of the rules before we get into it so you all know what to expect. Each candidate will have 1 minute opening statement after I introduce them. After that, we'll get into questions on a variety of topics afflicting students at Oakland University. Candidates will have 1 minute to respond to those initial questions, 30 seconds for rebuttal if they'd like to have one, or if they're directly named in the answer of another candidate. A timer is placed here in front of candidates. I'm not feeding them answers. They just have this here so they can see how much time they have remaining. Candidates, you can respond to whatever your opponents say, even if I don't call on you, just raise your hand so that I can recognize you, and you can respond however you like. Those will be usually about 30 seconds long. We'll start with some pre-planned questions, as I said, based on student polling that we did over the last week. I ask you all as the audience to keep applause to a minimum, keep cheering to a minimum, because it interferes with our audio recording. There'll be time for applause at the very end for your favorite candidate. And I think that about summarizes what we're going to do here today. So let's get into introductions. First in the middle is Murryum Farooqi. She's an international relations major with a minor in economics. She's currently in her third year as a student at Oakland University, and she's the sitting vice president of the student body. Additionally, she's a student senator in the University Senate, the treasurer of Pi Sigma Alpha Honor Society, and she's a member of the Honors College, Model United Nations Club, and Homes. Josef Gojcaj is a first-generation student and a current freshman at Oakland University, majoring in international relations with a planned minor in economics and French. He's the current director of outreach and events for OUSC, as well as a member of the Sigma Pi fraternity. Last, we have Joshua Kobus. He's a third-year student studying mechanical engineering. He's in several club sports, and he works for housing as well as Meadowbrook Hall. It's worthy to note also, each of these candidates reached their signature requirement to be valid candidates on the debate stage here today. And I believe with that, we can get right into it. We will start with opening statements. Murryum Farooqi, you can go first. 1 minute opening statement.
Thank you. Hi everybody, I'm Murryum. Thank you for coming out today. I want to start by telling you a little short story. In 2021, I was a freshman, I was a legislator in Student Congress. The Bear Bus had just been canceled. That was the only source of free transit on campus. I was ready to protest, I was ready to go out there. But guess what? People were telling me, no, don't do that. Don't go against admin. No, they're going to hate you. You can't do that. And so I had a little bit of a reckoning. But at the end of the day, I had to make the decision to go to that protest and stand up for what I believe in. And that day, a spark lit inside of me. And every single day since then, that spark has only gotten stronger when we fight against East Campus development, when we fight to get free menstrual products in all buildings on campus, when we fight to get reflection rooms in every single building on campus. I stood for us, the students, in 2021, and I'm standing here today because I plan to stand for you, for us, the students, again in 2023 as your student body president. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Farooqi. Mr. Gojcaj, 1 minute opening statement.
Let's go from here today to run our campaign for the rest of our lives. It is a sentiment expressed by Jacinda Ardern, who is the former Labour Party leader and former Prime Minister of New Zealand. And I would like to say I deeply connect with this sentiment. I think our slogan, Stronger Together, deeply connects with the fact of having a campaign for the rest of our lives. Because in order for change to happen, we need to make OUSC stronger in terms of communication, transparency, and overall robustness of the student body. Thank you.
Mr. Kobus, 1 minute opening statement.
Hello everyone, thank you for having me here today, and thank you for everyone who took time out of their night to come here to the debate. My name is Joshua Kobus, and I hope to serve you as the next president of Oakland University Student Congress. My platform is that I'm running off the fact that many student organizations have felt unsatisfied or fairly untreated by the policies from Student Congress and Student Activities Funding Board. Now, to help with this, my main platform is to separate this funding board from Congress so that I get rid of all conflict of interest issues as well as biases that prevent all student organizations from getting funding correctly. And I know the funding board independently can run very efficiently by themselves. And in terms of Student Congress, I would like to be a more visible organization for everyone at Oakland University, as well as be more transparent in terms of like our budget, what we spend on. I hope to make Congress, the organization, the light of Oakland University once again. So I'm happy to be here to answer all you guys' questions about my platform. Thank you.
Moving on to some general questions for these candidates. Keep in mind, we have 3 candidates on stage today, so I'll do my best to keep you all exactly at 1 minute so we don't go over and everyone has an equal chance to respond. Starting off with talking about your experience as candidates. We have 3 candidates for president this year, and for each of you, I want you to tell us about the experience you have for this position and why you're the right person for the job as opposed to the other candidates on stage today. So Mr. Gojcaj, let's start off with you. Let's hear about your experience and why you're better than the other candidates. 1 minute to respond.
I think my experience started at a young age, growing up in an immigrant working class household. I've gone through a lot of things in life, from drug addiction to mental health illness that resulted in the police coming. But following that, I think my parents raised me pretty well. I think having that experience of being a hard worker and, you know, helping people in a humanitarian way is why I'm here today. Also, I serve as the current director of outreach and events for OUSC. I came to the position very quickly after being nominated, and I also work as an aquatic supervisor at Lifetime Shelby in Shelby Township, Michigan. And after 3 months of being hired there as a lifeguard, I became a aquatic supervisor right off the bat because of my leadership skills. Thank you.
Thank you for that response. Ms. Farooqi, same question to you. Tell us about your experience for the job and why you're the right person for president compared to your competitors. 1 minute to respond.
Thank you. So my experience in Student Congress has been honestly such an amazing experience. I have been a part of so many huge initiatives, so many huge wins for the students. We donated thousands of dollars to the Affordable Course Material Initiative, where students are saving upwards of $60,000 on affordable textbooks. We ended the East Campus Development Program, or project, and we diverted those funds back to students. We fought for free menstrual products in every single building on campus, and I'm going to continue to fight for more of those. My track record speaks for itself. I could keep on going. I'm trying to think of more things. I started the pronoun program. We distributed thousands of pronoun pins across all of campus. That hadn't even been a thing before I got here. There's so many things. My whole career in Student Congress has kind of prepared me for this role, and I'm more than ready to take it on. Thank you.
Mr. Kobus, same question to you. Tell us about your experience and why you were the right person for president. 1 minute to respond.
So just to get started, I grew up in a family of 7. I'm the older brother, and then throughout my life, I've had more opportunities to display leadership, like becoming a resident assistant in the halls. Now, when it comes to my experience at the Student Congress, well, I have none. I am running just purely as a student who has been involved in some clubs, and I've heard their problems and their cries and struggles in terms of their involvement with Oakland. And I know that I was up there to run, to represent their problems, because as the past 2 years have gone by, I've seen that OU Student Congress has kind of hidden themselves from the general population. So I'm coming here from the outside because I know there's no biases, no conflict of interest issues or student politics that will prevent me from getting done what needs to be done.
But, Ms. Farooqi, go ahead. Yeah, 30 seconds to respond.
Yeah, I'd just like to emphasize that honestly, when I got here, it was during COVID time. It was 2020, and we were definitely hidden. And so that's when I was a legislator. And since then, we've grown in visibility so much. We have double the amount of members, and I'm sorry, I just went off the title. And we have thousands of signatures on our petitions. Double members, thousands of signatures. That's improved visibility. Thank you.
Mr. Kobus, go ahead. 30 seconds.
Throughout all the student organizations I've met and talked to, including the general students, no one knows what OUSC is or what they do. I feel that SPB is a program that many people are very familiar with. I think they're very popular. They go and cater to the students. When it comes to OUSC, very few people know what they are or what they do. Not even I knew who they were until just this open.
Ms. Farooqi, I'll allow 30 seconds, then we'll keep moving. This is our first question after all. 30 seconds, go ahead.
You know, as Mira was saying yesterday at the debate, we kind of joke around how you can't walk around campus without seeing something OUSC has done. Walk outside right there, that's a pollinator garden I helped plant, the first one on campus. Go downstairs or in any bathroom, free menstrual products because of my administration. What else? The library right over there, the ACMI program that we support. The farm, we give institutional support to the farm that supports sustainability. There's so many things all over campus that Student Congress does. Maybe students don't know, but we provide for them, and we can always try to, let them know, but we provide so many services.
That's 30 seconds. Moving on to our next question, more specific to the job as president. The president's responsible for working with outside organizations and making those key connections for initiatives to be successful. The question is, what campus groups or populations would you be most excited to work for in accomplishing your goals that you put onto your platform? Mr. Kobus, we'll start with you, 1 minute to respond.
I have many great ideas by who needs to be represented in Congress that is currently not getting the representation they need. For example, representative from Greek life, representative from student athletics, club sports, who have been struggling getting money. I believe our graduate students have also been forgotten. They are students too, and they have voices. Graduate student representative, and then a student representative as a commuter. And then one organization who has definitely been rejected is the Residents Life Association for Housing. They have not been going to any meetings. And I think faculty goes into that as well. I think it would be great to have a faculty representative. And by having all these representatives at our meetings, and actually meetings at a good time, not Fridays at 4:30 that no one shows up to, I think I could get more people to come, have more representation, and I could finally get an idea of what everyone on campus wants.
You're going to be the next one, so you can answer it in your response if you'd like. The question is, what campus groups or populations would you be most interested in working for or working with to best accomplish the goals in your platform? 1 minute. Go ahead, Ms. Brooke.
Okay, I'll say this. I've made a lot of different connections over my time in Student Congress, and I think every single student is important. I'm not going to box on these people, I only care about this group and I'm only going to talk to them. I care about every single student, no matter who you are, no matter what your political beliefs are, religion, whatever it is. I don't care. I'm going to work with you. Separately, with the thing about, Gen Body 430s, I mean, today is a Friday meeting. We're all here. That's what I'm trying to say. We're all here on a Friday evening. That's my first point. Second of all, sorry, is the timer counting upwards or downwards?
It counts up to 1 minute.
Okay, that's confusing me. Second thing is, we actually already have a faculty rep. We have a liaison from the AUP. We passed that bill last year. Club sports, we actually helped them get more funding. They came to us. We talked to them last year. You can double check it. You can ask Led, Bone, and Dance. We talked to them. We had a whole discussion. Problem solved. We have grad students in Student Congress, and the reps and representatives that you're talking about in Gen Body, we contact them every single week, and they don't give us any information. They don't show.
That's 1 minute. Mr. Gojcaj, same question to you. What campus groups or population would you be most excited to work for or work with to best accomplish the goals that you laid out on your platform? 1 minute to respond.
Yeah, I definitely think it's hard to respond to selecting certain groups of people and certain populations on campus, but some groups of people that I feel compassion for are first generation students, the LGBTQ+ community, anyone who's associated with Greek life and the Greek community, housing residents, and anyone who is an athlete.
Moving on to some more specific issues that are directly impacting the student body here at Oakland University. Before we get into that, I'll remind you all that we have various posters around the room where you can submit your own questions. That'll be about the last 45 minutes or so of the debate. Will be questions from you all dedicated to the candidates on the stage. But let's get into some more specific issues, starting with food and dining on campus. So in our polling with more than 150 students, 26% of them indicated that campus food and dining is their #1 issue. The question is, what do you think are the major problems with campus food right now, and what action will you take to address these concerns? Ms. Farooqi, let's start with you, 1 minute.
Thank you. So I can say again, as a freshman, one of my biggest things was having inclusive options, because that's something that's affected me personally, having strict dietary requirements. And so I know as a student, every student deals with and interacts with on-campus dining, and every student deserves food at a decent price and of decent quality. We've fought to expand dining hall hours in the dining halls that are open. We're working on that. We've fought to have them have inclusive food options, to have labeling for allergies and whatever it may be. And most importantly, the thing I'm most excited about that we've worked on is a program called Swipe Out Hunger, where we've worked to allow people to donate their unused meal swipes to students in need who use the food pantry. Sorry.
Okay. Same question to you, Mr. Kobus. What do you think are the major problems with food on campus right now, and what action would you take to address these concerns? You have 1 minute.
Yeah, I will say for sure that the dining halls definitely aren't perfect and they do struggle with a lot of issues. Now, I think I've learned from the current administration how not to deal with that, and I'm referring to OU Stars. OU Stars is honestly an immature and honestly a very cowardly way it's basically bullying Chartwells by showing pictures of gross food. Now, the way that it's supposed to go is last year I was the resident assistant liaison to our Residents Life Association. There, they have a Chartwells rep, and you could air out all the concerns. You could say, hey, this food was really good that we had today, and you could also bring up more things to the dining hall, like, oh, we prefer more fruits and veggies, for example. We prefer more options. And I think if we just anyone could join these meetings, by the way. If everyone just went there, voiced those concerns. By the way, I've never seen anyone from OUSC there before. I think that is a much better way to actually cater to Chartwells and work with them to actually make the dining hall better.
Let's let Mr. Gojcaj answer, then we can get to responses. Mr. Gojcaj, same question to you. What are the problems with campus food right now, and what will you do to address these concerns? You have 1 minute to respond.
I think we can all agree that we have some of the same experiences when it comes to food and dining here on campus. It's pretty disappointing to see the quality of the food here on campus. I think one of the biggest things we need to do is improve on the quality, because from what I know from Chartwells, they buy low-cost stock. They have low amount of workers conducting the preparing of the food, as well as charging higher prices for the food, even though they are lower cost. So I think one of the biggest things we need to do is improve the quality, lower the expenses, expand dining hall hours, and continue talks with Chartwells. Thank you.
Ms. Farooqi, you raised a hand, 30-second response.
Yeah. So, the OU Stars account, I think, really sheds a light on, student experiences. And I would never want to ignore, that's students speaking out. That's them calling out for help. And I think the next student body president has to be able to, address concerns and be able to look them, just really take them head on. Don't be even, just if they're a little bit rude seeming, or, you have to listen to students no matter how they portray their problems, their issues. Maybe they won't be able to do it professionally.
Mr. Kobus, 30-second response.
How to effectively voice your concerns is not by hiding behind a screen. It's by, as I said, going to the Residents Life Association. They log down everything that you bring up, whether it's a complaint or something that can be improved. And again, if a Chartwells represented there, they're always happy to listen. And I think that is the correct way to do this.
Ms. Farooqi, 30 seconds.
I have a question. How do you think going to that? How do you think you've got a chance to do? Because the time that I've met with them, I've gotten to expand my volunteers. I've gotten to start to program. I've gotten to start in the OC when people ask for them for catering. So if this system works so well, what have you achieved?
Mr. Kobus, you're directly named. I'll give you 30 seconds.
I think since 2020, the dining halls have improved much better than they were before. For example, I think one of the recent additions to specifically Hillcrest, they have a bubbly machine. Dandy, they have an enhanced water, no sugar, and I feel like that a lot of people actually really love this. And so there is hope for Chartwells. They could get better. And so the important thing is that they hear us. And as student body president, I would be very willing to work with them, because I think I could bring up any student concerns.
Just 30 seconds. Ms. Farooqi, you raised a hand, 30 seconds.
Those two things you mentioned, the bubbly machine and the water without sugar, did you ask them for those things? Did anyone ask them for those things?
Mr. Kobus, 30 seconds, go ahead.
Students have indeed brought them up. Yes.
Sticking with campus food and dining for a moment, OU Eats recently announced, as was already indicated, a meal donation program to allow students to eat without a meal plan if the donated swipes are available. So my question is, does this program do enough to address campus hunger? And if not, what else should be done? Mr. Gojcaj, let's start with you, 1 minute.
Yeah, I don't think Swipe Out Hunger is doing enough, because there are a lot of people on this campus who are students who face lower income issues, financial issues, and I think lowering the cost of the food and telling Chartwells to lower the cost, even though they're buying low cost product, is something that's irrecommendable.
Mr. Kobus, same question to you. Does Swipe Out Hunger go far enough? And if not, what else needs to be done? 1 minute.
I think it's a good addition because now, as someone who eats at Baney every day, we have a limited number of guest wipes, and you can bring anyone non-OU student related or people on campus, and we give out certain guest wipes. I know the previous director, Charles, was a very heavy advocate of expanding that in terms of you don't have a limited number of guest wipes, but you could literally swipe your card as many times for whoever you want until your meal swipes go to zero. And honestly, I think being able to be more flexible with your swipes is a very good idea. I think it helps a lot.
Ms. Farooqi, same question to you. Does the Swipe Out Hunger program go far enough? If not, what else needs to be done? You have 1 minute.
Thank you. So I can say Swipe Out Hunger is something we've been pushing for administration or for Chartwell's to since 2021, since last year when we talked to the food pantry and they told us about this idea. And we got them to do it for 1 week, and over 300 swipes were donated because they kept on telling us no one wanted to donate, which was crazy. So, you know, I think it needs to be something that's happened, that's allowed to happen year round. You should always be able to donate swipes because you pay for them, you know? And, you know, both my opponents here are also kind of giving similar sentiments. I have a minute right now.
Yeah.
Similar sentiments. But I'm the only one standing, this is not a stage, I'm the only one here that actually has a track record of getting Chartwells to do things. So at the end of the day, it's a matter of who has the track record, who has the proof of I've been able to do this in the past. Thank you.
At this time, I'll remind the crowd kindly to try to keep chatter to a minimum so we can focus on candidates giving their responses. Mr. Gojcaj, you raised a hand. I'll give you 30 seconds.
I myself am a low-income student who obviously uses the cards, the swipe out hunger cards, and I think we can do more than just swipe out hunger. I think we can get Chartwells to lower the cost, buy better quality food, so that we can get what we're paying for. I yield.
Ms. Farooqi, 30 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's something I've talked to Chartwells in plenty of meetings over and over again about lowering costs and better quality, and that's something I'm going to continue to push for. And so I just, you know, I want to ask, what are your accomplishments? What have you personally gotten Chartwells to do?
Mr. Gojcaj, you were directly named. 30 seconds to respond.
I wouldn't say I've done much, but what I know is that I am a low-income student who uses the Swipe Out Hunger, and I would like to push forward more with getting costs lower.
Let's move on to the topic of the cost of college. And the students that we polled, more than 50% of them indicated that cost is the #1 issue for them. That's more than 50%. Generally speaking, what are some of the policies that you'll support to reduce the burdensome cost of college for OU students? Mr. Kobus, let's start with you. 1 minute to respond.
Yeah, I'll just say, I know one of the reasons we're struggling with fines is because of the drop in student attendance ever since COVID. Now, one thing to keep in mind and to know is that right now, we need to give students a better reason to come to campus and to stay on campus. If we could get more if we could give good reason enough, students will come to campus, more of them, and more students means obviously jobs are getting better because as the student rates drop, obviously budget cuts happen, wages lower, jobs get lost. But as we can encourage students to get involved on campus more by showing attraction from anything like metal or ball, we can get other students to join, and as more students join, that means more money for the university, that means more creation of jobs, that means better wages, and I think that's how we plan to do it. You cannot simply push for them to just increase their wages without doing it, because they will find a way to, if you know anything about economics, they're going to raise tuition in order to pay for rising wages.
That's one. Ms. Farooqi, same question to you. What would you do, generally speaking, to reduce the cost of college for OU students? You have 1 minute.
So I know cost of college is a huge concern for every single student on campus, and so that is why pretty much every initiative that I have has some kind of connection to cost of college. You might not realize it at first, but kind of when you think about it, every single thing goes back to that. For example, you have the textbooks, the Trash and Textbooks campaign that I helped run. We donate money every semester to the Affordable Course Material Initiative. That pays professors stipends to take the time to sit down and say, hey, this textbook costs $300. Let me take 20 minutes to find an equal version that has the same content that's $0. And through that program, so we put in $5,000, let's say, one semester, that saves students $12,000 for one class, one section. All classes combined, for the whole, every single class, that gets you to a total of $60,000. So we're trying to rein in the extra burdens that students face.
Mr. Gojcaj, same question to you. What would you do if elected to reduce the cost of college for OU students? You have 1 minute.
I think we can all agree that all of us face some sort of barrier to affordability on campus, whether it be tuition costs, housing costs, transportation costs, food costs, and textbook costs. I think one of the biggest things we can do if our administration is elected in is increasing state funding. Right now, currently, Oakland University is the lowest funded university in Michigan, and there is a low enrollment, specifically over the past few years, which significantly downgrades the funding that a university gets in terms of how many students they have, how much money they're going to get for each student. And I would also like to increase the number of funding that we get per student on campus. Thank you.
Ms. Farooqi, I'll give you 30 seconds.
I'm glad you brought up the issue of funding, student funding. I was going to bring that up, but I got too excited talking about textbooks. I worked on last summer the campaign, a postcard campaign, to lobby the state to increase funding. The program is called Strive for 45, and we were successful in that. So there you go. There's my track record. I've done it.
Now, Mr.
I'll continue to
Kobus.
do it, sorry.
Mr. Kobus had already brought up the issue of wages, and that was the next question I was going to move on to. It was submitted in a question yesterday at the Vice President's debate. I figured it was worth bringing up here today as well. The Michigan minimum wage right now is set at $10 an hour. Some on-campus jobs still pay lower than $11 an hour. Do you think that wages need an increase? And if so, how would you get this done? Ms. Farooqi, let's start with you, 1 minute to respond.
Thank you. So yeah, I remember the argument hearing about how it's not economical and they'll just raise tuition. I don't think that has a valid point really, because they raise tuition anyways. They raise tuition every single year. They're going to continue doing it whether or not wages raise. You know what they also raise? I'm sure. Well, they don't, but I was going to say administration pay, but they don't also raise administration pay. But they spend a lot of money on things that are not going towards students. They spent $200,000 on the East Campus Development Project. So I think they have the money to pay students a little more than $10, $12 an hour. It's not 12, more than $12 an hour. Thank you.
Mr. Gojcaj, same question to you. Do campus wages need to increase? And if so, how do you get this done? 1 minute to respond.
Yeah, I definitely do agree that campus wages need to increase minimum $15, $16 an hour. And I think one of the biggest things that we can look at is how other countries have used this specific solution is by including economists and talking with their representatives and establishing a plan that increases wages yearly and fits with the fact of inflation. And I think what we can do if we get into office is talking with the economics and business departments to set out a plan to increase wages.
Mr. Kobus, same question. Do wages need to increase? And if so, how do you do it? 1 minute to respond.
Yes, they do. And going back to what I said is that pre-pandemic, housing was filled 100%. There was a lot of students on campus. I know in my platform, I talked about getting OU as involved as they were pre-pandemic, because as we know right now, ever since the pandemic, the current economy has been in a recession. Inflation is obviously going to lead to a lot of budget cuts across all companies. And for universities, that means rising tuition. So again, the plan is getting as many students as we possibly can, making Oakland University as attractive as possible, because we know if we could get OU money through more students joining, that's the best way to do it. And throughout that, I know that wages will automatically adjust, because jobs out there, they do want to pay. They're not sitting there saying they don't want to pay you 15. I'm sure they really do want to pay you. I know certain jobs on campus that do pay 15 hours. And they just don't have the budget for that, and that's what they need. They need a budget to afford raising.
Ms. Farooqi, I saw your hand first, then we'll go to Mr. Gojcaj, 30 seconds to respond.
I'd like to talk about enrollment, because administration, that's the administration's line. Every single time we ask them for anything, enrollment went down. We're still recovering from COVID. That's not an acceptable answer. Because, and they say it. They say enrollment went down, and they kind of show you the stats of the enrollment's going to continue to go down because the population in Michigan is going down. Population amount of people graduating high school is going down. So depending on that is not going to get you anywhere in terms of raising wage. Thank you.
Mr. Gojcaj, 30 seconds.
I would like to pose a question towards presidential candidate Kobus. What would be the plan to reach $15 an hour? Since right now, 1010 is not fiscally applicable to students on campus.
Mr. Kobus, 30 seconds to answer that.
One of the things I mentioned is OUSC for once actually bring themselves out into the light to be the organization of the main organization that sheds light across campus. And again, I know by making Oakland University look as attractive as possible for either students who are on other campuses that might be interested in joining here, or students who are graduating high school, we want to make OU look as attractive as possible for these students so we could get a huge participation percentage. And I know with that, the more money, I'm sure.
Moving on to our next section, we're speaking about safety. Students have expressed safety concerns for basically the entirety of this academic year, especially following concerning events on our own campus last semester, as well as the tragic shooting that occurred at Michigan State University just about a month ago. What would your administration do to support and address safety issues at Oakland University? Mr. Kobus, let's start with you. 1 minute to respond.
Sure, we had good ideas about that. One of the things I realized is that when you first get enrolled in campus, there's no training about like what to do in case of anything like this. And I know for sure OUPD has those posts outside that you could contact in case of emergency. Now, unfortunately, sometimes a lot of them are down, and I think a lot of students don't even know how they work. And so I think working with OUPD in order to encourage and educate students about what to do in case of problems like this would be awesome. Specifically for housing, I know having good relationships with housing is very important, and I know there are some good people out there who really want to see campus be safe again. So it would require a lot of working with them, at both them and OUPD, to make this campus safe.
Ms. Farooqi, same question. What would you do to address campus safety concerns? 1 minute.
Yeah, sure. I've been working on this tirelessly, especially this year. I mean, just today, I met with the Chief of Police and the VP of Student Affairs to talk about restricting building access after hours. And let me tell you, it was a debate. Administration needs to be pushed on this, and you need someone in the position of student body president that is willing to push and willing to go back and forth and not just say, okay, that's right, okay, I guess we're gonna give up. You know, because I'm being told, oh, the world is unsafe. You know, don't just like, there's not a guarantee to anything. Where that's not acceptable to me, I will push, I will continue to push to have every single building should have restricted access, at least, you know, in the evening, in the after hours, because this is a crucial, important issue that I know every student cares about. And speaking about blue lights, OUSC, we've already addressed the blue light issue. We had the chief of police, I invited him to our meeting, we talked about it. They're currently digging some pipes or something.
Mr. Gojcaj, same question. What would you do to address campus safety issues? You have 1 minute to respond.
So following November 14th of last year, there was an incident here on campus when 2 armed people entered onto campus, and I passed a resolution a month later addressing safety. And what I would advocate for is swipe out locks on doors on every single building on this campus to ensure the safety of students, to ensure the safety of faculty, and to ensure the safety of all OU workers. I also would like to create a standing position in OUSC with OUPD to further the conversation between the two.
Ms. Farooqi, 30 seconds.
I think I just want to bring up that I don't recall safety being in the platform, and I just mentioned every building having restricted swipe access, and then just naming that thing. If you could explain that.
Mr. Gojcaj?
I think the way that we read the election packet is that it said only 1 page instead of 16 pages.
Mr. Kobus, you raised your hand. 30 seconds.
Yeah, in terms of safety being on a platform, I too was told my platform must be 1 page, so I shortened it. So, and again, really proud of it. But anyway, campus safety is an issue that needs to be addressed, and I'm hoping with more representatives we could do that. Working with OUPD, again, I know OU is probably, I think it's the 3rd safest national campus. I would like to see that go to number 1.
Moving on to our next topic, the topic of administration. So a major challenge for any session of Student Congress is to manage that relationship between the student body, student Congress, and the administration. Sometimes administration can be a major help in getting things done. Other times they can be the #1 obstacle to getting things done. How do you intend to deal with administration if you're elected? What do you want the relationship to look like? Ms. Farooqi, let's start with you. 1 minute to respond.
Thank you. Yes. So I have been dealing with administration for a while, and honestly, Student Congress has had an interesting ride in terms of our relationship with administration. You know, as I kind of said in my opening statement, when I got here, you know, the atmosphere was very much like we will back administration, whatever they tell us to do. We kind of don't question them. Our job is to kind of inform students about what administration does. And that didn't really sit right with me. You know, I was like, we're supposed to be activists. You know, I want to push back. I want to, work towards making campus better. And so when I was elected as vice president, that was one thing that made my campaign really unique. And that's one thing that really shifted the culture in OUSC. And I will continue that, negotiations. I always like to negotiate and meet with the administration before we do any kind of petition or protest. There's a way to do things. And I have that experience. I've met with so many administrators, so much. I have the most experience on that front here. Thank you.
Mr. Gojcaj, same question. How would you manage the relationship with administration if you're elected? 1 minute.
Yeah, I think keeping an ideal of professionalism when talking to administration is ideal, as well as strengthening that relationship beyond what it is now, so that in the future, administration, when we need direct help for something, we can go towards them. And I think one of the biggest things of maintaining that relationship with administration is keeping the ideals to uphold the students' voices, but both keeping a professional environment.
Before we get to you, Mr. Kobus, I'm being told right now, just make sure everyone keeps speaking directly into the microphones, just so audio gets through onto our recording devices. Mr. Kobus, though, same question to you. You'll have a minute to respond. How do you manage that relationship with administration?
Yeah, so I believe the first tip is to be as respectful as possible because they are the ones running this campus. And again, one of my plans is that I am not going for this position so that I have the authority to speak to the president or the administration. I'm in this position so that the students can tell me what to bring up to them, and I think that will alleviate some really good communication between us and them.
Ms. Farooqi, 30 seconds to respond.
Yeah, I want to emphasize every main initiative that I've pretty much ever worked on has been student informed. Before we work on something, because we could be working on 50 different things, frankly speaking. And that honestly is something that scared me when I started. I was like, what do I work on? Like, I don't want to say one thing unless important, And so what I kind of had to do to kind of ground myself is say, okay, what are students really worried about right now? And so right now, it's safety. It's dining halls. It's food on campus. It's sustainability. And those are the things that I've talked to the administration about.
Okay. Moving on to our next topic, the topic of diversity, equity, and inclusion. A major equity concern at Oakland University is the disproportionate graduation rate between different groups of students on campus. According to OU's equity dashboard, the graduation rate for white students is nearly 30% higher than that of black students at Oakland University. What do you think is causing this issue, and what steps, if any, do you take to resolve the problem? And Mr. Gojcaj, let's start with you. 1 minute to respond.
I think one of the first things that our administration would be able to do is establish blank pronoun pins besides he, him, she, her, and they, them. People who identify as a different gender can identify themselves as they want, as well as keep strengthening a relationship with CMI to establish programs to further procreate a society that helps POC and people of color.
Mr. Kobus, same question. What do you think is causing this disproportionate graduation rate, and what steps do you take to solve it? 1 minute.
So I have to say, I know that there are many great organizations out there that would be amazing to work through, such as the CMI, GSC, and I know even working with the dean of students to get to the bottom of the problems of why this is happening would be great. I know they're wonderful people. I've met with them before, and I think they'd be amazing people to work through with. I think they speak for a lot of those students who struggle to graduate or get good grades, and I think we'd be happy to work with them. We would have a liaison that goes out to them. We'd love to hear their voices, and their voices is what we're going to bring up to the administration.
Ms. Farooqi, same question to you. What's causing the issue? How do you solve it? 1 minute.
Yeah, so one thing that we've actually found that directly impacts, you can research this, that directly impacts the minority graduation rate is, again, I'm going back to it, textbooks. Because the biggest reason people don't graduate is because they can't afford to keep paying tuition and paying for textbooks and paying for high prices for food and whatever else, just paying for all these different added fees, right? So data says this, that if you give people the option to not pay for their textbooks, they're more likely to stay in school and graduate, because that's just one less burden on them. And I'm also going to say, as a woman of color, I understand the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I have a track record of actually doing things about it. I'd like to ask my two opponents, what specific things have you done? Because I started the pronoun pin program. And actually, speaking of blank pronoun pins, I just ordered some the other day, just for bloggers. And I'm going to fight for inflection rooms in every building, menstrual products in every building, and gender neutral bathrooms in every building.
You were both named, would either of you like to offer a response? Mr. Kobus, 30 seconds.
Yeah, I'd like to say experience working for housing, I think, is actually good practice for creating diversity and inclusivity, because every month we're supposed to host programs, and every now and then we host very large programs, and we're basically trying to hype up all the residents to come and join us, no matter what. And we usually get a good amount of attendance and diversity from everyone, including any background. Us, as someone who works for housing, we're really taught on how to really cater to the diversity aspect of people living here.
Ms. Farooqi, 30 seconds. Would you like to respond? Ms. Farooqi, 30 seconds.
Yeah, so just speaking on programming, programming is one big thing in terms of retention, making sure people graduate. And I've actually directly addressed that. I started the first ever Middle Eastern Heritage Week on campus and the first ever Asian and Pacific Islander Heritage Week because TMI wouldn't do it. So, and that's retention. Programming at housing, I'm not sure what culturally that focused on, but I can say that my programming is directly hitting on students that are not represented in programming currently.
Moving on now to a new section in our debate. We did a similar section with the Vice President's debate last time, and we're going to do the same thing here today. These are going to be candidate questions for each other. So about a week ago, I emailed all of you and asked you to prepare questions for each of the other candidates on stage with you today. You'll have a chance to ask those questions. You'll have 1 minute to ask the question. The person you're asking will have 1 minute to respond, and then after that, anybody can chime in with a 30-second response. We'll start with Mr. Gojcaj. Your questions for either of the candidates. You have 1 minute.
One question I'd like to pose to presidential candidate Kobus. Since being a new face coming up in this election and coming into OUSC, what would you do to advocate for change in OUSC?
Mr. Kobus, 1 minute to respond.
Yeah, so one of the things I strongly believe in is, other than fixing all the problems within OUSC and the funding board, I do not have my own agenda. My agenda is solely based off of the students who deserve their perfect representation in Congress. Whatever they bring up is what we're going to work on. Whatever they want to change, that's exactly what I plan on focusing for change. And that's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to get more involvement in OUSC, students that would actually like to join and voice their concerns, make it a better environment for them. And I think that's the way to do it.
Mr. Gojcaj, do you have a question for Ms. Farooqi? 1 minute.
Yes, so I was reading through your platform, and you state that you would promote the establishment of a women's resource center. Would this center include gender-inclusive resources such as gender-affirming care and counseling?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. That's something that I really was thinking about a lot because we've had discussions about having a gynecological center on campus and having a women's resource center on campus, and I think those are both issues that need to be taken care of. And so we should be able to have both of those things. We should have a women's center because women have problems, again, like Mary said yesterday. Our problems don't start and stop at our ability to reproduce, right? So you need a women's center to deal with all those things. Do I have 30 seconds or a minute?
You have a minute to respond.
Sorry, so you need a women's center to address all of those things. And speaking of gynecological care and things like that, because that was in your platform, two issues with that. Usually, people can't access that care. It's either cost or transportation, right? We have a gynecological office right across the street from Oakland University. So clearly there's not a transportation issue, right? Cost, Graham Health Center doesn't accept the majority of insurances. So, and actually the place across the street would probably accept more, I bet, because Graham really doesn't accept any. So I just want to say that. And then, yeah, that's what I would say.
Mr. Kobus, your questions for the candidates. You have 1 minute.
So for the both of you, I would just like to ask, how important do you feel it is to fund long-standing OU traditions such as the Meadowbrook Ball?
Mr. Gojcaj, let's start with you. 1 minute.
Yeah, I think it's very important. I think we assure all students and all organizations are equitably funded for, and that includes, traditional events. So,
You 1 minute.
Yeah, so let me talk about this for anyone who doesn't know. The Meadowbrook Ball is something that charges tickets to students to go and attend this event. Okay, great. But the part where it gets weird is that they're charging students, you have to pay to get into this event, but then they're asking for funding from SAFB, which is tuition dollars. SAFB has a policy in their bylaws that says you cannot, because that's like a scam at that point. You can't fund an organization, you can't get funding and then charge people. That's our hard-earned tuition dollars. And then you're telling me I'm gonna pay tuition, SAFB's gonna give that tuition to Meadowbrook Ball, and then they're gonna charge me, make me pay a ticket to get in? That doesn't make any sense. Thank you.
Mr. Kobus, a minute to respond.
I would just like to say that they have been running since 1974, I believe, and they have always been getting a waiver request for that because they are one of the most major events that happen on campus. Now, I don't know if anyone would realize what has changed in the recent years that would allow something as disastrous as this to happen, of them not getting funding.
Ms. Farooqi, 30 seconds.
I will say, them not getting funding is not correct. They did get funding. And the SPB funded them. Okay? They did get funding. It's not like the thing didn't happen. Okay?
Mr. Kobus, 30 seconds.
Other SAFB boards are not supposed to pick up the mess that we created, and that's why as OUSC I'm going to bear this responsibility of actually funding the organizations that they deserve.
Ms. Farooqi, 30 seconds.
Anybody doesn't know what SPB stands for, it stands for the Student Program Board. Programming, events, fun things like the Meadowbrook Ball. So I think it makes sense, I mean, at least to me, that they should be funding an event that's, for fun, culture. I'm sure it's a great event. I know it's a great event. But again, you can't have students pay tickets to go to an event that their tuition is already paying for. It's like if you had to pay a ticket to get into class. I already paid tuition. Thank you very much.
Ms. Farooqi, your questions for the candidates. You'll have 1 minute.
Thank you. So, that's my first question to Mr. Kobus. I know you talked a lot about separating OUSC and SAFB, right? And so currently the way it is, OUSC oversight for SAFB. We hold SAFB accountable. And so what you're proposing is an SAFB with no checks, no balances, and no accountability. And so I want to know, honestly, I don't know what your definition of corruption is, but that's what the corruption to me. You're saying get rid of the oversight, because if there's bias at that point, who's going to handle it? Who's going to handle bias in your system?
Mr. Kobus, a minute.
This isn't something new, by the way. There's a precedent that SPB used to be part of OUSC. They've since become independent, and they're arguably like one of the best organizations on campus. They run more efficiently, they run much better, they are very popular with the students, everyone has a very good opinion of them. The reason I'm separating the Student Activities Funding Board is because of the conflicts of interest. Now, let me just think of an example. Let's just say the president of Student Congress happens to be a treasurer of the Swifties Club. Well, they don't struggle with budget requests. But Meadowbrook Ball, they can't get funding. And so it's a conflict of interest because as chair of SAFB, your boss is involved in another organization. They're not going to get denied. You don't want to disappoint your boss. And so this is a huge conflict of interest because I know that if I separate them, I get the president to not have any more say in how funding works. SAFB can run much more efficiently, and I think the OUSC oversight is actually preventing them to get things that need to be done.
Ms. Farooqi, your response, 1 minute.
I'm very happy to hear that because honestly, I realize this whole thing has just been one big misunderstanding, I think. Because any budget request that's going to be approved or denied or whatever, if somebody has a stake in that club, if you're on the e-board of that club and you're also an SAFB, you're not allowed to be involved in that vote. That's always been our policy, and like that's never a thing where you have someone who's on the e-board and then making decisions about whether or not something is denied or accepted. I mean, I don't know why you're making that face because I've seen these things happen. You haven't, so I don't know what. So, thank you.
Mr. Kobus, 30 seconds.
I'll just ask for an example of the Meadowbrook Ball. There shouldn't be any reason why the executives get involved in that decision about why they get funding. That should solely be this funding board's responsibility. And I know if they have their own president, vice president, and they run solely efficiently and independent on their own, I know that they could run much better because once the executives get involved, then it creates a whole other mess. And that's exactly why Meadowbrook did not get funding for the committee this year.
Ms. Farooqi, 30 seconds.
Let me just say again, the president and vice president of the Student Congress are both ex officio voting members on the Student Activities Funding Board. So, we fully have the right to be in meetings if we can. Honestly, I don't think I've ever sat in on a hearing in a meeting. Like, I don't have the time, frankly. It's not my job, so that's really not something that happens.
Ms. Farooqi, I believe you had one more question. I'll give you a minute to do so.
Mr. Gojcaj. So, our platforms, I've seen a lot of similarities, and people are asking me this question, and I'm sure they're asking you it too, what sets you apart? So, I'm wondering, there's so many, specific similarities. And, I can say I have the experience where I've actually gotten things done in the past, and I have plans to get things done in the future, and you have the same ideas, but I'm asking, what are your plans? What's one initiative, you've gotten done maybe all on your own? And honestly, I'm not sure, I don't understand how this could have happened, because it's like, I'm not sure why you're running, or platforms are so similar, and I feel like other people, I'm being asked this too. And so, just why?
Mr. Gojcaj, 1 minute.
I think one of the biggest reasons why our platforms could be similar is that we obviously work together, and when it comes to initiatives, we open it up to the table to whoever can obviously work on the initiative. And I will say I haven't done an initiative on my own, but I have worked with other legislators and directors and e-board to further those initiatives, specifically the Plan B initiative, school safety resolution, and student concerns table.
Let's move on to some individual questions that I have for each of you, just one each. You'll have 1 minute to respond, and then we will move on to questions from the OU community that we've been getting submitted through the form, which is still available to submit if you haven't put in a question and you would like to. Starting with Ms. Farooqi, your platform dedicated a section to, quote, safeguarding your rights on campus. Can you explain what this means to you, what rights need safeguarding, and how you would intend to accomplish this? You have 1 minute to respond.
Thank you, yes. The biggest thing, the main reason we put that on there is because free speech is an important thing on campus, but also in student congress. We don't want anyone to feel like they can't join student congress or, don't feel safe on campus just because they have different religious beliefs, just because they have different political beliefs, whatever it may be. And so student congress will always be here to fight for you, no matter, what your background is. And so that's something that I just thought was really important. Thank you.
Mr. Kobus, you are running without a vice presidential running mate. If you were to win, you would have the vice president of whatever slate comes in second place. If this is to happen, could you tell us how you would manage this and what you would do to make this relationship work? You have 1 minute to respond.
Well, I would just like to say that I did actually have a vice president, but because of rules stating that she needed to declare her own presidency by the due date, she was not able to appear at the ballot. Now, in terms of who will be my VP, I guess we'll just have to see. I have high hopes that I could start working together, and I have high hope for having a good relationship with whoever it may be, because it's still a mystery to me who's going to be. But yeah, it is what it is now. Accept it.
Mr. Gojcaj, a question to you. Your platform states, quote, we will work closely with student organizations and become more cooperative in creating a campus of robustness and communal efforts. Can you explain what this means to you and how your work with student organizations would be better than your competitors? You have 1 minute.
Yeah, so I've had a number of conversations with people from other student organizations, and some have been dissatisfied, some have been satisfied with the way we're connecting with them, whether it be OUSC or SAFB. And I think one of the biggest things that we can do is, major reform, obviously. I've read through the SAFB bylaws, and I could see how it potentially could be confusing to someone who is a student organization leader who is reading it for the first time or going through the first training session. And I think definitely reforming the way the bylaws are read and interpreted will help the connectivity with students in SAFB.
Ms. Farooqi, 30 seconds.
Yeah, I really like to talk about this whole situation because, strangely enough, Mr. Kobus, one of your representatives or campaign manager on this helped draft the current SAFB bylaws. I recommend to draft those, to do those reforms. And Mr. Gojcaj, you voted on the current SAFB bylaws. We went over it multiple times. Anything you want to change? What do you think? And so I find it really funny that everyone is being malicious over it.
It's 30 seconds.
That's what we have problems.
Would either of you like to respond? Mr. Kobus, 30 seconds.
My representative is actually here right now. Personal testimony from that. I'm not sure what happened in those two, or how long he was there. What I will say is that the atmosphere of what I told, what it was like working as a chair of SAFB was very disappointing.
Mr. Gojcaj, a response, 30 seconds.
I will say yes, I did vote on and for the SFB bylaws for this current school year. However, the time we get to read over the SFB bylaws during meetings is very minimal. And I think if we're going to be passing a set of bylaws, there definitely should be time and obviously overview of what the SFB bylaws look like.
Ms. Farooqi, 30 seconds.
So I've been hearing this a lot, where like, we don't get a second to read over anything, we just do a quick skim over. Things that we go over in the meeting, everybody knows this, everybody gets these emails, okay? One of the people on your own slate is the person responsible for sending out the email every single week to say, here's what we're gonna talk about at Gen Body today. Here's everything, so you can read over it ahead of time. And let's say you don't get to read over it ahead of time. It'll be up for a vote the next week. You have 2 weeks for every single bill. So there's no excuse, frankly speaking.
It's 30 seconds. Mr. Gojcaj, 30 seconds to respond.
What I want to say is that not always are resolutions, bills, or say the SFB bylaws that were passed are 100% always linked in the agenda.
Ms. Farooqi, 30 seconds.
Okay, I get that, but let's say, like, bills, which is SAB is a bill, right? That takes 2 weeks to pass. Let's say it wasn't linked for some reason. You get to look at it at that meeting, but it's not eligible for a vote at that meeting. No matter what you do, you cannot vote for it at that meeting. You have to wait till next week. So you have a whole week to ask somebody. We all work together in the same office. Just to tap someone on the shoulder, be like, hey, can you share that with me? Message on Slack, hey, can you share that with me? And it usually is shared at the meeting. Thank you.
Let's move on to some questions from the Oakland University community. These are going to be mostly questions from students, but it's open to anybody at OU. We're going to try to get to all the questions here tonight, but we have about 30 minutes remaining in this debate, so we may not get to all of them. Some of these questions may be posed to all of you. Some of them may be posed to individuals. Regardless, feel free to raise your hand and you can state a response to whatever the question may be. We'll start off with the first one we have from the student body president, current student body president, Andrew Romano. Yes, all candidates. The debates have been largely focused on your platforms and ideas, but to be a successful president, you have to also have a personal drive that can inspire others. He asks, what are you most passionate about and why? And he says, please use this as a chance to humanize yourselves after a very long technical debate. Mr. Gojcaj, let's start with you. 1 minute to respond.
I think one of the biggest things I'm personal about is expanding the Graham Health Center in terms of its health-related resources and its sexual health-related resources and its gender health-related resources. I think one of the biggest things we can start instituting in the Graham Health Center is PrEP, which is a HIV prevention drug, Plan C or mifepristone, and as well as gynecologic consultations and adding a gynecological department, as well as gender-affirming treatment for those who don't identify as cis.
Ms. Farooqi, same question to you. What are you most passionate about and why? 1 minute.
I'm going to try my best not to get technical with the policy like we've done this whole time. So yeah, I think the thing that's most important to me is diversity, equity, and inclusion. Because, you know, it's something I've experienced myself, you know, firsthand. You walk into a room and people ignore you, or people look at you a certain way just because you're different. And to exactly like me and, you know, experience the exact same, you know, discrimination that I do, it means I can help anyone that's ever felt a very different. And that is something that I will always put first and fight for. And, you know, I will always have my door open to hear student concerns, because I know I can't speak for everybody when it comes to issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Mr. Kobus, same question to you. What are you most passionate about? Why? 1 minute.
Definitely most passionate about actually improving the Student Congress and the funding board. From all the stories I've heard from organizations complaining about how bad it is to work with Student Congress to get funding, that makes me want to actually admit some change to the funding board and whatnot, because it is our tuition dollars. I think Murryum is right in saying that it is our tuition dollars. Now, some of the things that just really make me mad about the fact that that's our tuition dollars is that programs and organizations are not getting the funding, like Moderator, like Model UN, also struggling, like the pig roast. They're not getting their funding, and that's our tuition dollars right there. Why is the funding board sitting on 600 grand worth of our money right there? And why have I heard from many past presidents of SAPAC organizations that you guys try to give yourselves bonuses? And as I look through the budget, I see presidential and vice presidential scholarships worth 5.5 grand. So if you would like to tell me what the purpose of those is, I think.
Ms. Farooqi, you were directly mentioned. I'll give you 30 seconds to respond.
Yeah, I love that we were talking about ourselves instead of policy. So yeah, I can talk about SAFB real quick. So we're hearing, stories, fantasies, right, of all these, all this chaos. But I can tell you the numbers. SAFB has approved 427 requests over the past year. We've increased funding to an all-time high. So I don't know, the math I'm not getting it with that. And with Molly One, I'm literally a member of the Molly One.
That's 30 seconds.
Anyways, okay.
Mr. Gojcaj responds 30 seconds.
Could I get a total number of denials and the rate at which the denials had either increased or decreased over the past years?
I don't think I have that
Ms.
number.
Farooqi, 30 seconds.
17%. I think someone made a shout out in the audience.
Audience, please don't shout out answers. Ms. Farooqi, did you want to
I believe I heard 17% shout out in the audience of the current.
just remind the audience to keep chatter to a low, no applause, that kind of thing? Mr. Kobus, I'll give you 30 seconds.
So yeah, just to get back to that, what I want to do as president is to make sure all our organizations are getting the proper funding we need, and I need to uncomplicate Congress so that they have no trouble getting the funding they need for their very important programs. That's basically what I'm going on. Club sports don't have money, they need money. All these student organizations need better funding and better communication. We need flexibility. Those are all things I want to provide to Student Congress and the funding board.
Ms. Farooqi, raise your hand.
Yeah.
30 seconds.
Honestly, I feel like what we're doing right now is complicating Congress and FAC involvement in terms of getting into the weeds of all these, specific things. And they're all important. I know the students are hurting. I know that students need support. And that's why I'm going to increase funding as elected. I'd increase an additional $1,000 per student every semester. I'd increase $500 extra a week for special projects funding every semester. I'd create a general assembly where every student organization gets a liaison to work with Student Congress, which is actually something that was in Mr. Gojcaj's job description and has not been worked
Mr.
on.
Kobus, a response, 30 seconds.
Yeah, I would just like to say that I think the funding board has enough money to even double what they get right now. And I think the main issue here is flexibility and communication. From what I've heard is that everything is really stripped by the book amounts, and we need flexibility, we need communication. That's what I'm going to bring so that there's not going to be a burden on these organizations. They're going to have it easy. It's going to be easy for them to request anything.
Ms. Farooqi, 30 seconds, and then we'll move on to another question.
I wonder how many people in this room have jobs. Jobs where there are rules, where if you don't follow them, you probably get fired. At best, honestly speaking. And, to keep on going on about SAFB following the rules, it doesn't make sense to me, because these are student workers who have been told these are the rules you need to follow to do your job right, and they're following them. And for some reason, there are complaints about that.
So I've been hearing a lot about SAFB. We're hearing about it a lot in this debate. We heard about it a lot last night at the vice presidential debate, and we're getting a lot of questions from students about SAFB right now. So if I could synthesize these all into one question, let's have you all state what your position on SAFB is. Simply, what do you want its relationship to OUSC to be? Whether it's total separation, whether it's oversight, whatever that may be. How do you maintain accountability over SAFB? And how do you ensure that there's no corruption from the executive board and SAFB? If you can answer those three questions. Mr. Gojcaj, let's start with you. 1 minute to respond.
I think ensuring that SAFB funds money to organizations in an equitable way. And I think one way we can prevent corruption is strictening, is that a word? I don't know. But we can stricten the process by which we hire the SAFB chair and go through confirmation hearing, say that, as well as reforming the bylaws to make it readable by student leaders.
So to be clear, you wouldn't want total separation of SAFB? Okay. Ms. Farooqi, same question to you. What's the relationship to SAFB like? How do you maintain accountability? And how do you ensure there's no corruption? I'll give you 1 minute.
Thank you, yes. So as I've said before, we understand that students are hurting and that orgs are hurting. Okay, and we've done things in the past to increase funding. Like I said, SAFB funding is at an all-time high, the amount that is available for students to receive. And in the past, with the past reforms that happened, we increased funding by $1,000 sorry, we didn't do that. We're gonna do that. In the past, what we've done is we created a special projects fund to allow students to work on initiatives that they like, that they care about on campus. Again, like I said, increased funding to an all-time high. And what we're going to do, which I haven't heard plans other than there's issues that we need to fix them, but I have actual details. We're going to increase amounts to $1,000 every semester, additionally for each org, and $500 additional dollars for special projects fund. And again, like I pointed out, like I just did, we'd want to create a general assembly where each organization gets a liaison to pass resolutions. And actually, it is in Mr. Gojcaj's job description currently to create that, and he hasn't.
So to be clear, no separation, no divorce of OUSC and SAFB. Mr. Kobus, same question. What do you want the relationship to be like? How do you maintain accountability? And how do you avoid corruption? 1 minute.
Total separation is the only way to avoid corruption. As long as the executives have a hand dipping into what the funding board could do, there is always going to be conflict of interest issues that prevent things from getting done. As an independent organization, we'd be happy to work with them, but as president, I would actually have no power over them. Neither their hiring process, neither what they're doing with their money. They're all on their own, and I think that needs to be how it is, because the precedent is last time an organization separated from OUSC, they did perfectly fine on their own. And we'd love to have a good relationship on them without actually having the power to decide what they do.
Just a quick follow-up to that, if I could. How do you ensure accountability on SAFB? If you totally separate. 1 minute.
Oh yeah. So I know a lot of people who have previously worked for SPB or no, SAFB. I know people who have been the current or past. I know people who have been the past chair of them. I know they've had a lot of good experiences working there. I think they would be very suitable because the first thing I think what everyone needs is to have someone that leads SAFB that actually knows what they're doing and can actually fund the programs that we want. So there are a lot of experienced people that I know can run it very well.
Mr. Gojcaj, I saw your hand first. I'll give you 30 seconds to respond.
I just want to echo the sentiments to presidential candidate Murryum that just because it isn't in our platform, that doesn't mean we won't do it. And also within my job description, I was not properly guided at the beginning when I was nominated, and the only thing I was told to do is email organizations, send out forms to Grisorgs, and that's about it.
Ms. Farooqi, I see your hand, 30 seconds.
Yeah, first I have a response to Mr. Gojcaj, but I also have a response to Mr. Kobus.
Sure.
Yeah, at one point. So the training that you received was from myself, and I don't recall seeing Google Forms on Griswold. That's just not a conversation we have. We've done some of them, but I'm just going to bring it back to it's in the bylaws. You were a legislator. As a legislator, the bylaws, that's your thing. So it's surprising that something that's in the bylaws, you're shocked.
Mr. Gojcaj, 30 seconds.
If you properly trained me, why didn't I get that advice? Train me.
Ms. Farooqi, 30 seconds.
So right now, you want to be student body president, but at the same time, you're complaining that you didn't receive enough training to do well in your job. Like, as student body president, you'd have to be training other people. So how are you going to train people if you're saying right now that you're not even properly trained?
Mr. Gojcaj, you were directly named. I'll give you 30 seconds.
I think I have a robust background that would, fit me into this position very well, and I have leadership skills, I have great communication skills, and I don't think just because I got the lack of training doesn't mean I can't fit the position very well.
Moving on from this question, there's been a lot of talk of transparency on the stage tonight. So an OU student asks, what do you intend to do to ensure that all OUSC matters are transparent and available to the public? Mr. Kobus, let's start with you. I'll give you 1 minute.
Yes, I think the most important thing is our budget to be public. Every student should have easy access to the budget, even the Oakland Post as well, because I've heard people have been reaching out to them and they can't get their hands on the budget. Now, when you see things like that, it gets a little suspicious about what's on the budget. It's very hard to get the budget, and if you're arguing that that's their tuition money, they deserve to see every single thing we spend money for. And so I'm going to make the budget completely public to everyone. That is pure transparency right there.
Ms. Farooqi, same question to you. What would you do to ensure all OUSC matters are transparent, available to the public? 1 minute.
Right. I can say, honestly, under my administration, we've revamped the meeting minutes to be even more transparent than they've ever been. You know, you can click on a minute and watch the video of exactly what somebody said while reading through the meeting minutes. And the budget, guess what? When you click on the minute, you can click on it and then you can see the recording of us going over the budget. And that is public information.
Mr. Gojcaj, same question to you. What will you do to ensure that all OUSC materials are available to the public and transparent? 1 minute.
Yeah, I think keeping our budgets open and accessible to the public is a great thing to do. Right now, currently, the 2021 to 2022 budget for OUSC is locked, and the summer 2020 budget is locked as well. And we also need to update bylaws because some amendments to the bylaws haven't been changed. And stating from the president, he says, that's not my job.
Ms. Farooqi, 30 seconds.
I just like to say, I don't know why, number one, we're bringing up a previous, or like the current president, and not him. He's not running in this election. And speaking of bylaws that need to be updated, it's literally, we're not allowed to update them if they have not gone through, wait, sorry, bylaws? No, you're talking about the Constitution. Bylaws.
Yeah.
Constitution.
Or both.
Well, speaking about the Constitution, because I know we have that situation.
Yeah.
The Constitution, there are a few things, can I get like an extra 2 seconds to pause?
Go for it.
5. The Constitution, those amendments, we can't actually make them until they go through and the whole student body, speaking about transparency, until the whole student body gets to take a look at them and vote on them like a ballot initiative. When you vote for us, one of us, this election, those things will be on there for you to vote on, and then we can put them in the Constitution. So we are not able to, we're bound by our rules right now.
Mr. Kobus, I saw your hand first. 30-second response.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to know people working with OUSC who know the budget very well, and I would just like to ask Murryum, one of the things that really caught my eye is the fact that there's a presidential scholarship and this presidential scholarship worth $5.5 grand for both semesters. I would just like to ask you, what is the purpose of those?
Yeah, no, thank you so much for bringing
1
that
minute
up.
to respond.
Oh, sorry. 1 minute to respond?
30 seconds to respond. I'll restart the time.
Thank you so much for bringing that up. So this is kind of the theory behind that, right? You shouldn't have to worry about like, oh, I can't work in student congress because they don't pay enough, or because they pay nothing. When I got here, legislators were not paid. They pay nothing, and so, you know, it's basically gatekeeping leadership. You know, if you don't give people support, at the end of the day, what you have is all the rich kids, all the people who can afford to work in student congress for free, all the people that can afford to work for free getting leadership positions. I don't think that's right.
Mr. Kobus, I saw your hand first. Then we'll go to Mr. Gojcaj. 30 seconds.
I guess I'm still confused on what the purpose of those are. I would just like to know what those are.
Mr. Gojcaj, we'll let you address the matter. 30 seconds, and we'll come back.
Yeah, one of the biggest things with the scholarships is coming from a person who is low income themselves. I can deeply express that if you're helping people and you're helping people in a humanitarian way, I don't think I should have to be funded for that. Because at the end of the day, it is for the people, not me, it is for the people. Because any sort of scholarship that I receive from that does not adequately define me as who I am, because at the
30
end
seconds. Ms. Farooqi, your response, 30 seconds.
You're asking, what is it? It's a scholarship. It's money. Because students should not have to worry about, oh, I can't join student congress because I can't afford to work for free / very low. That's not fair. You're literally letting students who can afford to work for free have an advantage, get that work experience. You know, oh, I can make more at McDonald's, I actually really need this job. I guess I'll have to work there and miss out on this great leadership experience because I can't afford it. That's why we have this.
Mr. Kobus, I saw your hand first. 30 seconds.
First of all, I would just like to say, as a position of president, when you're serving the students, I don't think it's more like a volunteering job. I don't even agree that it should be a paid job. It used to be volunteering. People never got paid. Legislators never got paid. So my question is that scholarship going to you or is it going to someone else?
Ms. Farooqi, I'll allow you to respond. We'll go to Mr. Gojcaj. 30 seconds.
We've been over this like 3 times. It is a scholarship. It is money. It is, you want to join student congress, but you don't want to go broke while doing it, you know? So it's literally money. Yeah, I don't know what else to say to that. It should be a paid job because honestly, if you have people volunteering for all of this, nothing would get done. How much, like, nothing would get done. Like, a lot less, at the very least, would get done. It's a full-time job, practically, when you combine it with school. And
30
it's 25
seconds.
hours, but yeah.
Mr. Gojcaj, 30 seconds.
See, the thing is with scholarships, yes, it might be money and it might look good for the work that you're putting into it, but at the end of the day, you're trying to help people, and I don't think, coming from a person who is low income themselves, I don't think obtaining a scholarship just for helping people is ethical.
Ms. Farooqi, I saw your hand first, 30 seconds.
Okay, we're talking about helping people. So what are you going to tell? What are you going to say to the student that says, I wish I could join student congress. I wish I could be a legislator, but I need one. I can't. I don't have the time. I wish I could be, or whatever it is. I hear noises in the audience and it's distracting me. But basically, we want to help students who can't afford to work for free to be able to be involved in their community. And I think that's
30 seconds. Audience, let's keep chatter to a minimum if we can for the last 12 minutes or so of this debate. Mr. Gojcaj, I saw your hand first, then we'll go over to Mr. Kobus, 30 seconds.
Yeah, so one thing I would like to remind is that, actually, I would take that back.
Mr. Kobus, 30-second response.
I think if every student had easy access to the budget and learned that their tuition dollars were going to you in forms of scholarship, they would not be really happy at all. I think they would ask for their money back. I think there are better things they could do with it.
Mr. Gojcaj, I saw your hand, 30 seconds.
I had never mentioned taking away wages, I simply mentioned taking away my own scholarship. Nothing else, because guess what? If the legislators are putting in the hard work, they're putting in the hard work and they should be paid for it. I am willing to give up my own scholarship to be able to give back to them and even increase the wages as well.
Ms. Farooqi, 30 seconds.
$13.50 is not a livable wage. Okay? Maybe I'm crazy, but it's not a livable wage. So, and there are people making way more. Your options can be work fast food, work something that doesn't really help you on your resume to make ends meet, or get this great leadership opportunity job and also make ends meet. I don't understand why we're acting like we're being so charitable when literally this whole process is to allow people to give access to student government.
That's 30 seconds. Mr. Kobus, you can go, then Mr. Gojcaj will move on to another question. So Mr. Kobus, 30 seconds.
I would just like to say that this is totally more of a volunteer. You're serving the students here, they are not serving you. Their money going to you. In fact, I think it's not right. And when I say not being paid, yes, I do mean personally, I would never rob someone else's money, but I'm saying for me personally, even though I myself do not have a lot of money to put up large banners in the OC or post posters everywhere, because it's all on my own, I'd still be willing to just work this as a volunteering job because the students are above me here and I'm serving them. And so I don't think I should be being paid in their tuition dollars.
30 seconds. Mr. Gojcaj, 30-second response, then we'll move on.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things we can strive for is obviously increasing the wage. That's not what I'm advocating for, increase, not decrease. We are going forward, not backward, okay? So one thing outside of OUSC I do is I work as an aquatic supervisor. I get $15 an hour working at a gym out in Shelby Township. So I think one thing we can advocate for if people are, facing these difficulties.
Now, we have about 10 minutes left of the debate. We still have to get to closing remarks, but we'll try to get to a couple more audience questions. We will not be able to get to them all, just so you all know. The next question we're going to do, though, is from Kayla Sharp. She asks, students and faculty are currently organizing against administration to raise campus minimum wage to $15 an hour and build worker power. The question is, what is your plan to support and defend student activism in the face of administration pushing back? Ms. Farooqi, let's start with you. 1 minute.
Yeah, I have always defended student activism, and I will continue to do so. I do not let administration hide behind their excuses of we'll have to use tuition or we can't afford it because of quote-unquote budget cuts. Because at the end of the day, if something is a priority, you can afford it.
Mr. Kobus, let's go to you. What will you do to defend student activism in the face of pushback? 1 minute.
Yeah, I'd say that we are definitely the voice of students. If students are accurately represented, we are the voice to go to the administration. Now, I think one good reason is always to get students' voices via signatures or anything sort of that. Now, a good way to get more signatures is to actually bring OUSC back out from the shadows so that they're more visible to students. Everyone can know about them, and that way we can actually get more voices to the administration.
Mr. Gojcaj, same question to you. What's your plan to support and defend student activism in the face of pushback from administration? 1 minute.
I think one of the biggest organizations that has a forefront foot on this issue is YDSA. They've initiated the $15 minimum wage petition, and I'm willing to increase petition to $16, $17 because guess what? We are living in a time of inflation, and we need to act now.
Ms. Farooqi, 30-second response.
So I don't know if it's just me hearing this, but on one hand, we want higher wages for students, but on the other hand, we don't want to make, leadership positions accessible. So I'm just a little about that. And also, OUSC is not in the shadows. We literally are at an all-time high number of legislators. We have 23. When I joined, there were like a handful.
Mr. Gojcaj, you were addressed first. 30-second response if you'd like.
Yeah, I don't think scholarships and wages can be connected when, I'm trying to advocate for change for the students, not for myself. Okay, it is all about them, not about me. That is it.
Mr. Kobus, you raised your hand, 30 seconds.
I think it's very simple saying less money to me as a president means more money to the students. The money not going to me will go to the students. And even though you say there's more legislators than ever, no, that's cool, but I'm talking about normal students here. The normal student doesn't know about OUSC. And I know that from personal experience.
Ms. Farooqi, 30-second response.
I'm sorry, I don't understand. Like, all normal students, okay? And again, it's not crazy to say that, in order to give people access to positions, there has to be some kind of support. If these didn't exist, the amount of people that are in a position where they can join student congress gets super tiny. And I'm sure maybe you're really I'm sure you can be good-hearted and all of that, but at the end of the day, if you can't afford basic needs, it doesn't matter, there's priorities.
That's 30 seconds. Mr. Kobus, I saw a hand, 30 seconds.
Yeah, I would just like to define when I say normal student, I mean non-OUSC related students, because I know OUSC students are still students, but I'm talking about the general population, because as I meet with organizations, I'm surprised by the amount of people that go, what's OUSC? And then I ask them, well, do you know what SPB is? And they're like, oh yeah, SPB. But no one knows anything about OUSC, and that's what I want to do. I want to make OUSC like a good, light organization that everyone can know.
Mr. Gojcaj, I saw your hand first, 30 seconds.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that I identify in my roles is that if I give up my own opportunity to push an opportunity to someone else, it makes me feel good and it will make the other person feel good. So if I'm willing, and I will, take out my scholarship in order to push it out to someone else, I'm willing to do that because I know at the end of the day that it is helping someone else.
Ms. Farooqi, 30-second response, and we'll move on to the last audience question. Go ahead.
It's I want to say hurtful to, tell people that if you don't want to work for free, that means you're not a good person, because that's what it sounds like you're saying. Or work for a very low wage, you're not a good person. You should have it in your heart where you're able to not, work for a very low wage. That's just not, it doesn't make sense to me. And also, talking about being in the shadows, I haven't seen much of your campaign. I haven't even seen it on Instagram, and Instagram doesn't cost any money. Thank you very much.
So make sure to keep applause to a minimum. We have to move on, for the sake of time, to the last audience question. The question, we've received a couple of these, so I'll try to put these together. In the face of Roe v. Wade being overturned, a lot of students on both sides of the aisle have a lot of concerns about reproductive rights in general. Do you see a role for reproductive rights and the protection of those rights in OUSC? And if so, what are you going to do? Mr. Gojcaj, let's start with you, 1 minute.
I think one of the biggest things following Roe v. Wade was reproductive rights were at stake across the United States. And, my vice presidential candidate, Amir Mitchell, actually pushed forward the initiative to make Plan B free on campus. However, it was shut down. And we actually went about actually informing the students about Plan B being $15 on campus, because a lot of the people that we have talked to who we gave those resources to, that Plan B is $15, how to access it, what are the side effects of it, they thanked us and they said, I didn't know this was a resource. Thank you.
Ms. Farooqi, same question to you. Is there a role that OUSC has to play in protecting reproductive rights? And if so, what is it? 1 minute to respond.
Yeah, of course. And I think one really important thing when it comes to protecting reproductive rights is talking to people who are able to reproduce. Talking to women. I'm the only woman on this stage. And I think we all know what happens when we put men in charge of making decisions about what happens to our bodies. And I'd like to also say, with the Plan B flyers, I designed those whole things. I made the template, worked on that together. You finalized it. That's all I would say.
We'll give Mr. Kobus a chance to respond, and then we'll come back for a response. Mr. Kobus, your response to that question, 1 minute.
I would just like to say again, I'm not making any decisions on my own. I'm making decisions based off what the students bring as a concern, because OU Student Congress is supposed to be a place where students come up, and I'm the one saying, ask and you shall receive. Voice me your concerns, and we'll work them out for you. It has nothing to do with who I personally am or what my gender is, about who I represent. And so, again, bringing up what Amir's good idea, I think having an alternative to the Plan B in case the prop didn't pass, I thought those were some really good ideas, and I think we could pursue something very similar.
Mr. Gojcaj, I saw your hand, then we'll move on to our final question tonight. 30 seconds to respond.
Yeah, one question I want to pose to presidential candidate Murryum. What were the specific government agencies that were on the information resource for Plan B?
Okay, you were directly named. I'll give you 30 seconds, Ms. Farooqi.
I believe you did the research, but I was telling you that I made the template. I made the design. I told you, here's how you want to structure this. You want to say, this is our slogan. Did you know that you get landed? I don't know why we're getting into this, honestly. At the end of the day, I'm here to represent students. I have a track record. I want to go back to my policy, which I don't know, I'm hearing the appliance and it's distracting me, I'm sorry. I have a track record of standing up for students. I've been doing this. I have the most experience here, and that's all I have to say.
That's fine. Mr. Gojcaj, you raised the hand. I'll give you the final word on this. 30 seconds. Our final question, very simply, each of you to question. We won't do rebuttals on this one, but what issues, if any, do you think we missed during this debate that still deserve to be elevated before we leave here tonight? Mr. Kobus, let's start with you. 1 minute.
Yeah, I think sustainability is one thing that wasn't mentioned. Obviously, I put my platform plans for that. I think that was one of the main things that were addressed here. But yeah, in terms of my platform, anything I listed on there is stuff I would like to fix, but any other than that, it's complete open forum to the students. All the issues they bring up is what we are going to fight for.
Ms. Farooqi, same question. What topics did we miss that you think deserve to be elevated? 1 minute.
Yeah, so one big thing that honestly, when I found out about it on campus, I was shocked. And I think it's kind of a lesser known policy. So here's the background basically. Michigan has a law called, I think it's the Good Samaritan Law. And it means, if you're underage, consuming any substances underage, and you go to the police, you go to any kind of institution for help, they won't criminally charge you for seeking help, right? And at OU, let's say that happens to you. Let's say you were assaulted while drinking underage, or whatever it is underage, and you go to OUPD, they can't criminally charge you, but guess what? They call up Dean of Students, and conduct charges are now on your transcript. And next thing you know, you're applying to grad school and they say, have you ever been disciplined by the university? And you have to say, well, I was assaulted and I was underage. Survivors should not be punished. And we need a medical amnesty policy at OU. Thank you.
Mr. Gojcaj, same question. Did we miss any topics? And if we did, what deserves to be elevated before this debate closes? 1 minute.
So a lot of people don't know about this, but there are specific representative positions that we have for OUSC, so that's Greek Life, RLA, and student athletes. Most of the time at these meetings, most of these representatives don't come because they don't feel heard. And also, I would also want to fight for a liaison position for the GSC.
Let's end with closing remarks. You'll each get 1.5 minutes. There will be no responses or rebuttals to these as we're closing out tonight. Mr. Kobus, you'll go first. Closing remarks, 1.5 minutes.
So yeah, just to end, just to summarize everything, is that I want to see OUSC become a great organization. Again, I think we could follow the footsteps of many SATBAC organizations that know how to popularize themselves and get themselves out to the students. I know that I could resolve a lot of the issues that have took a dark turn in these past 2 years, and I think I could make it better. And so I hope to see you April 3rd when voting opens up.
Mr. Gojcaj, closing remarks, 1.5 minutes.
I think one of the biggest things that OUSC can continue to do and further to do after this election is better change, better transparency, better communication and better robustness for the student body, because at the end of the day, we all work together, and being together is the strongest thing that we can do. Hashtag stronger together.
Ms. Farooqi, closing remarks, minute and a half.
Yeah, so like I've said this entire time, again and again, asset is my experience and my track record. I am the only one on this stage that has a track record of getting things done. I've distributed thousands of pronoun pins around campus. I've increased mental products from being in one building to being in 8 buildings on campus. And I'm going to continue to do that. Food, dining on campus is important, and I'm going to continue to push on that. I'm going to continue to push on all of these issues as hard as I can, because I care about the students. I have always cared about students. I think my track record speaks for itself. Thank you.
All right, everyone, big round of applause for our candidates. Thank you all for coming out tonight. I appreciate you sitting through this entire debate. It was a long one. Voting begins next week on Monday, will last until Wednesday. Results will come out next week. Thank you all for coming.